The Heavenly Demon. Can't Live a Normal Life. By Sanchin. Chapter 137. People of Roman Dmitry. Part 1. On the day before the tournament, Dmitry was crowded with people. Roman held the tournament for the sake of interests in the northeast, but that wasn't all. Are you attending it? Of course. It is a tournament that gives 100 gold, so why wouldn't I? It will be unfortunate if I don't go now. I need to show how terrifying the sort of a mercenary that has been polished in wars is. Mercenary, huh? I hope you fall into the group with Chris and lose from the start. You bastard. People heard the rumors. Chris. An incomparable opponent. He had a record of defeating a 3-star swordsman and a rumor that his sword was so fast that one couldn't see it move. If one met Chris in the group of 6, it was already decided that they would fail. Fortunately, in order to not see blood, they said that only a 1-star aura could be used, but still, no one could dream of defeating Chris. Kevin is someone to be careful about too. He is a demon. In a tournament with an aura limit of 1, he is more dangerous than Chris. Have you ever actually seen Vulcan and Pookie? They are no joke. Just to briefly explain the point of this tournament, avoid the 4 of them, Chris, Kevin, Vulcan, and Pookie. Trying to beat them will get your arm broken. Those 4 names were the subject. People knew who to avoid based on previous rumors. Yet, the reason many showed their will to participate was that if they could avoid those 4, they believed that they would have a high chance of winning. It was truly a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Since the other 2 groups were definitely going to be a battle of chaos, people earnestly prayed to be in them. Please. Please let it be easy. On the next day, the group that the people had been waiting for was announced. It was a situation of both joy and sorrow. Even among the Northeast Nobles Alliance, there were joys and sorrows. And one noble had a gloomy reaction to seeing Chris's name on the list. I will have to deal with Chris. 1 month. 1 month of doing everything. And it was a situation of using just a 1-star aura, but the opponent here was Chris. Moreover, they had a reason to win this. So most of them decided to send out powerful people from their families as representatives. Baron Rollo, who was chosen as Chris's opponent, was no different. He was sending 2-star swordsmen to represent the family, but it was Chris's group that they fell into. The future looked bleak. A monster who defeated a 3-star swordsman with just a sword technique. The result was obvious, but he didn't want to send his most favored swordsman to such a dangerous place. There is no need to be so desperate. Right. Aren't the swordsmen of the Baron outstanding? Of course, that doesn't mean Chris is weak, but if they give up and lose motivation, it won't work. After all, everyone is human. And one cannot predict how the future will be, so let us not give up. The nobles. They were the ones who avoided the subject of carelessness. In particular, Viscount Conrad couldn't hide his joy that a different person was chosen for Chris's group. McBurney, I will take that more on out. For this tournament, he had researched people, and what he found out was amazing. Despite being the eldest son of the Baron family, Roman had outstanding talents. Including Chris. So, having McBurney felt like a joke to him. Although he was a skilled warrior and had fought on the Western Front, he didn't think his men would be defeated by a 1-armed warrior. Losing one's main arm would upset the balance of the body, and that was a lethal weakness in fights. Yet, McBurney was given the role of Roman's representative. And the fact that he was assigned that role made Viscount Conrad pleased. Everyone. This tournament isn't an individual thing. If anyone produces a winner here, we will claim our rights against Dmitry. So keep the pride in you. Even against Chris, we cannot show a broken spirit. We will win the title and lead the alliance to victory. Right. A noble helped Conrad. This man was in Henderson's group. He seemed elated at the thought of dealing with an unknown name. Finally, everyone nodded. In fact, except for Chris, there was a chance to win over others. We have been fully prepared for the past month. Roman Dmitry must have also needed time to prepare, but that time proved useful for us. Actually, winning in the group of McBurney and Henderson is certain. So let's do our best to win in many more groups. If we can win half of the 6, then wouldn't our status be further improved? Right. Let's smash them. People were now feeling enthusiastic. Their eyes changed except for Baron Rollo, who would have his men against Chris when everyone shouted, "Take down Dmitry." This tournament was an amazing chance. After this, Dmitry would no longer be able to raise his voice against them. Was it said that when you're unlucky, you can break your nose from falling on your back? Baron Rollo was desperate. It felt unfair to be put in Chris's group, but having him as the first opponent. We cannot even abstain. The moment he raises a white flag, the nobles of the alliance will turn their faces away from him. Actually, as a 2-star swordsman from his family had participated, he hoped that the tournament would end with him being safe. In his heart, he wanted to give up. But knowing he could not do that, he suppressed his disappointment and warned the family. "Max, keep this in mind. You do not have to push yourself against Chris. Our goal is not to tarnish the name of the alliance. But there is no reason to put yourself in a dangerous situation trying to win. Lord. Trust me." What do you mean? From the moment I decided to participate in the competition, I trained hard to win. I know that Chris is a great swordsman, and I even heard about how great he is, but he is also a 2-star swordsman like me. So there is no reason for me to back away in fear. In the meantime, I prepared everything in the hope of meeting him, so just trust me this once. Max. He spoke proudly, and as he looked at Baron Rollo, he tried to show the spirit of a knight. Max? He was shocked at the dignified nature the man was showing. Listening to Max, it didn't seem like Chris was invincible. Baron Rollo said, "I get it. Do your best out there. Do your best against Chris, and if you think of it as impossible, then withdraw without another thought. I will pull up a white flag if I think you are in danger." I understand. His emotions were melting. He was a loyal servant, and his lord cared for him. He thought of a miracle. If Max could defeat Chris, it would be a great chance to leap higher. This is a chance. It will leave a deep impression on the people. Phew. Max, you can do it. And he went up. Round 1. Believe in him, and like that. Whack. In just 3 seconds, Max fell with blood splashing. Chris's appearance was different from usual. He looked at his opponent on stage with fierce eyes like a sharply forged sword. I will be proving myself through this. Not just a normal victory but an overwhelming one. Not hoping for one to win but to stomp on every opponent he faces. Had he not been trained for this? In the days of training that reminded him of Roman Dmitry, Chris was confident that he could win against anyone. Confidence from reality. The results were as expected. Flutter. Start. Came the signal. 1 second. Max kicked the ground to move and narrowed the distance in an instant. He began to raise his aura right away, not wanting to give Chris a chance to react. Grrrr. 2 seconds. He swung the sword. It was fast, and he believed that Chris wouldn't be able to react. 3 seconds. At that fleeting moment, Chris dug into the rushing aura. Compared to Roman's aura, it was an attack that wasn't intimidating, and Chris blocked all the aura around him. The opponent's expression changed to shock. Even if there was a chance of avoiding it, he didn't think Chris would move ahead to block it. And so, Chris's sword raged. Unable to escape from it, Max's nose was crushed, and he coughed up blood. Whack. Ack. It was an overwhelming result. Even though the opponent was a 2-star swordsman, Chris ended the match within seconds. Our round 1 is over. Chris of the Dmitry family is done and has qualified for the next round. Baron Rollo was shocked. He only had vain hopes, so he couldn't help but be shocked at the reality. No. Is this the difference? This was just the beginning. The tournament progressed, and soon screams began to be heard. Kevin of the Dmitry family wins and advances to the next round. Vulcan of Dmitry. Pookie of Dmitry. All four proceeded to the next round. And the fights didn't last more than 10 seconds. They showed dignified moves, and their opponents, who looked determined like Max, collapsed after facing reality. The people were shocked. They knew the people of Dmitry would be strong, but they didn't expect such an overwhelming force. Wow. Is this the class of Dmitry? The rumors about the Southern Front were not false. They are on a whole different level. Their hearts plummeted as they admitted it. As initially feared, winning the group with a vigilant target was impossible. Then, their interest was clear. McBurney and Henderson. The moron and the unknown man. People believed that those were the divisions in which Dmitry's men could be defeated. Tack. So people focused on Henderson's stage. Chapter 138. People of Roman Dmitry. Part 2. The 6 people representing Roman had their own fame. Chris and Kevin became famous in the Northeast area. Chris was called the genius swordsman in Dmitry before even entering the battlefield and showed great performance along with Kevin in the battle against Varko. They were called the Flash and the Ghost of Cairo. There were many people who saw them in action, so they wanted to avoid fighting them. Vulcan and Pookie overwhelmed people with their origin and appearance. The fact that they were war mercenaries made their presence unfavorable, and their physical look with massive bodies made the others fearful. Despite the fact that they had lower names than the first 2 mentioned, those who faced them in real life would avoid looking at them. And then, McBurney and Henderson. Both of them were shabby. McBurney was once a good fighter, but now he only had one arm. He was just a one-armed swordsman and nothing more. They didn't know what backstory McBurney had, but it didn't matter anymore, considering that the one-armed man was easier to deal with. And Henderson. To put it simply, he was the weakest. And the basis of that judgment was a rumor. Henderson is coming on behalf of Roman? Henderson of Lawrence? No way. From what I know, Henderson is just a normal farmer who never touched the sword. I did hear rumors of him following Roman Dmitry, but a farmer is going to compete in a swordsmanship tournament? From commoners to farmers, people's eyes turned to him. Even with progress, he was someone who fell behind all the names of Roman's men. Just like Henderson, Kevin wasn't of great origin, but he at least showed his power so no one doubted him. But Henderson was different from Kevin. A lot of people knew that during the time he was a farmer, Henderson was a coward. And on the first test, Henderson peed in fear. So ever since that time, Henderson was known to be the weakest one. Was that why? In this tournament, the men in Henderson's group were happy? Yes. This is nice. Heaven is helping me. They were sure that this man was the weakest and that the winner would be in this group. And the knight who was Henderson's first opponent had the same thought. Group 5. Round 1. Henderson and Taylor. Henderson and Taylor, the people focused there. Just looking at the stage, people were convinced that Taylor would win. A knight right from the start. So done. He cannot beat Taylor. Taylor, a wandering knight from Lawrence. He, who once lived in Lawrence, recognized Henderson right away. Long time no see. Mr. Taylor? The last time we met was when you had a busy farming season, and I am indebted to you. At that time, you didn't seem like the type of person to touch a sword. Now, you are holding one right in front of me. You really don't know life. No matter how many times you wander around the world, humans will always give us new shocks. Taylor smiled at their past relationship. Taylor knew Henderson was a good person, so he spoke in a low voice so that no one could hear. Henderson. I will give you a chance to give up on the tournament, considering our past relationship. As you know, I have reached a special realization and am now a 2-star swordsman. It means that you cannot deal with me, and I intend to prove myself through this tournament. In order to do that, I will have to show an overwhelming force, and I cannot take you on in a way that will hurt you. There is no reason to hurt you for this. They were not hasty words. 1 year ago and today, there was a limit to time. And no matter how far he progressed, Taylor knew that Henderson would never be able to even touch his toes. Everyone in this place. Everyone looked down on Henderson. Henderson was the weakest person in here, and everyone wanted to climb up by defeating him. I understand what you mean. Grip. He picked up the sword and looked at Taylor with a nice smile. I know how you remember me. So do your best. If you show even a little mercy on me, I will seize the chance and bring you down. He had sharp eyes that were different from the past. Taylor showed a surprised expression and raised the sword. I hope you do not regret it. At that moment. Swish. Start. The signal was given. The confrontation of a commoner and an aura swordsman. The scene that the people had imagined. The thought of an aura swordsman pushing the opponent with brute force happened, but in a different way. Tack. The one leading was Henderson. Henderson slammed his feet to the ground to attack Taylor, who was still hesitating. Kong. Cocking. The swords collided. Taylor looked a bit shocked at the power Henderson displayed in the follow-up attack. Like cogs perfectly meshing, Henderson's combo attack was perfect. No matter how Taylor managed to block his opponent's attack, Henderson would strike again immediately, leaving Taylor gasping for air. What is this? This was an unexpected attack from Henderson. It was the perfect display of movement. Since he was a farmer, he thought that Henderson would make awkward movements, but there were no loopholes in his attacks. The person I was a year back and the person I am now are different. Since passing the test, Henderson has been through hell each day. There were so many talented people who passed Roman's test, and from the start, they had skills better than his. He was surprised to see Kevin. He had pure admiration for the boy who was only a foot shorter than him but was able to defeat his opponent with overwhelming force. And he saw his own reality. To solve everything with a simple resolve, Henderson was far behind others. After talking to Mr. Chris, I promised myself to become a person befitting of staying behind my lord. Surely I am not gifted, and unlike other people who grow quickly and can create aura, it took me a lot more time to feel mana and manifest it. A being who always follows behind others, that is me. But that doesn't change the fact that I am making progress. Henderson was like a turtle. Slow but sure. And on the right path. Henderson was built with his own efforts. Taylor would only remember his version from a year ago, but the blood and sweat of his body were melted into the sword he was wielding now. Tack. Kaka. Azure sword technique. In a sword technique with 108 movements that could respond to every situation, Taylor couldn't even get a single hit on his opponent. At first, he felt shocked, and as time went on, it felt disappointing. To think Henderson was continuing to take the lead, he knew that sword technique was a systematic movement that couldn't be ignored. The people watching from a distance were shocked too. This wasn't right. At the very least, Henderson had to show the level of what they considered weak. Kook. Taylor countered. Henderson didn't step back as he expected this. Swish. The wind blew. If he had been hit by the attack, the injury would have been insignificant, but Henderson didn't move his gaze away from Taylor. I will not fall for this level. Training in the past, his opponents were Kevin, Chris, and even Roman Dmitry. Dealing with such monsters, he had experienced something new each time, so Henderson's reaction speed was abnormal. Yet he wouldn't deny that among those following Roman, he lacked the most. However, he had worked tirelessly to be able to represent Roman Dmitry here. Tack. When he saw the opening, he quickly moved. He executed a false movement to break down Taylor's form and attempted to attack at the opposite angle. You are done. This couldn't be stopped. And Taylor fell. He clenched his teeth in embarrassment. Damn it. Rumble. Aura manifested. In a situation beyond what he imagined, Taylor exerted power beyond common sense. It was a last-minute decision. Taylor narrowly avoided it, his face flushed with unidentified emotions flowing through him. I didn't want to use mana. The opponent was a commoner and a being who had never felt mana. He wanted to defeat Henderson with pure sword technique, but when they fought, he realized it would be impossible. It couldn't be helped. He couldn't just lose like this. He escaped the crisis by exploding his aura and striking his sword in front of him. Rumble. Sorry, but it ends now. 1-star aura. The victory was decided. Even if Henderson jumped ahead, he could not stop this. But rumble. The same aura shone from Henderson's sword. And it wasn't some huge power. It felt weak, but he, who was a commoner, touched the state of aura. It made no sense. Looking at Taylor's wide eyes, it was clear just how far and well Henderson had developed. But the people who were gathered here didn't know that Henderson's development wasn't that fast. Those who started to accept mana through the Azura sword technique, starting with Vulcan and Pookie, did it a lot earlier. Yet Henderson's aura was weak. Being well aware of this fact, he deliberately deflected the opponent's aura and dodged the attack. Pack. Both arms moved. Taylor was defenseless. In the development that everyone didn't expect, Henderson recalled what Chris told him yesterday. Henderson. When you came to me and said you'd give up, you were just a weak human. You were the kind of person who gave up without even trying, and if you had put everything down right then, your life wouldn't have changed, not just as a swordsman. No matter what trials in life you face, you will be a loser. And in 1 month, you had a win rate equivalent to the top 6. Unlike overwhelming warriors, you struggle every time, and when others accept defeat, you dream of getting one more victory. And this is the result of it. He smiled. Chris looked at Henderson with warm eyes. You are qualified to represent our Lord, and I will guarantee that. And now Henderson believed in himself. He didn't consider himself superior, but he didn't doubt his victory either. Those times of working hard. The person who used to be a commoner has changed a little. People might still consider him a commoner, but Henderson experienced a world that others couldn't imagine. Whether Taylor struck back or avoided an attack, or even if he had to block, he had already experienced everything during his training. Taylor raised the sword to block, but Henderson slammed him with his body to break the stance of his opponent. And then, chuck. He held the sword to his neck. This meant the match was over, and Taylor admitted to it with a pale face. I lost. Group 5. Round 1. The result was different from what everyone expected. Henderson won. People who had been watching with smiles and smirks were now at a loss for words. Chapter 139. People of Roman Dmitry. Part 3. Henderson. People wouldn't have been so surprised if he had been a mere obscure person. Aside from the fact that he didn't have a reputation as a swordsman, many knew of his farmer days. Whisper. Is that Henderson? That Henderson defeated Knight Taylor? We just saw it wrong, right? The aura, doesn't it take more than a year to even feel mana? Then how did Henderson, who was nothing but a farmer, know how to use aura? Everyone was shocked. Henderson was someone they were familiar with. When Roman Dmitry's name blew up, they didn't know what Henderson was up to, but they knew the reality around them. The friends who drank with him, the colleagues who helped him during the cropping time, and the elders who watched him grow. Everyone obviously knew Henderson, so this made no sense. The day Henderson left Lawrence, people held him back and said, "Have you lost it? Caterpillars need to eat pine needles to live. So why would a man who lived all his life as a farmer go do such a dangerous job? Life is no more. A farmer needs to die as a farmer, and being a swordsman is a life one should be born into. In half a year, I promise that you will miss your life as a farmer." That was their last memory with Henderson. But now Henderson broke the aura test, and those who had been harsh to him were all dumbstruck as they watched him come down the stage. And that was when they found out that while they continued to live the same life every single day, Henderson followed Roman Dmitry to make a life that everyone thought would be impossible. For a moment, they felt envious of this. But after watching Henderson bow his head to Roman Dmitry, no one knew anything about him anymore. Those who remember the past Henderson couldn't hide how shocked they were. Things are so weird. Wasn't it clearly said that Henderson is the weakest? Then how did he defeat an Aura swordsman? Couldn't there be an accident with Henderson winning Group 5? The nobles of the Northeast Alliance were sure they could win Groups 5 and 6. McBurney had luck in the early stages, and they thought he would advance to the second or third rounds, but it was different for Henderson, who went against an Aura swordsman right away. If everything had gone according to plan, Henderson would have had nothing to use against Taylor and would have had to fall, but unexpectedly, he knocked Taylor out. There was an ominous feeling in the air. Viscount Conrad spoke with a bright face. "Do not lose your composure, people. This is just the start." And if Henderson weren't good, would Roman Dmitry put him in the competition? This is rather expected, but wait patiently. One cannot win this with 1 or 2 wings, so there is a limit to what people like Henderson can even display. His eyes trembled as he witnessed it. The systematic movement and Taylor's defeat were unbelievable, with the opponent being a commoner. But what could be done? The tournament started and they cannot back out now. Trust me. The ultimate winner will be us. Until then, he gulped, still unable to digest the fact that their assumptions had been incorrect. After Henderson's victory, McBurney won too. McBurney's opponent was not a skilled swordsman, so not many people were surprised by his victory. For round 2, they didn't wait for the next group. The next round proceeded immediately after the previous match. Son. Yes. Is there any other reason why the tournament that is so troublesome is being held in the Northeast? The nobles are clever. Even if they don't win, they will aim to make us bow our heads. It was Baron Romero. Roman had come up with the plan, but even though it didn't make sense, the Baron wholeheartedly supported his son's ideas. And Roman said, "I know that too, father. The nobles of the Northeast Alliance are like bats in a cave. No matter how the conversation goes, they will be back to doing their thing. But still, I think this is a necessary process. The Northeast is complacent about being able to deal with the force of Dmitry. That is not the truth, but a mistake that resulted from their confidence thinking that they have the central government on their side. In the northeastern area, Dmitry was the king. On the other hand, the Northeast Alliance were like foxes who could conceal themselves and keep their heads held high. And that was a risk factor. If there were an actual conflict with the Northeast Alliance, the Dmitry family would have no choice but to bear the damage, even if they won. Because war is war. In the process of eradicating forces such as the Northeast Alliance, Dmitry would lose forces, and the Northeast would have to step back. That wasn't satisfactory. Roman hoped to completely engulf the Northeast. "Father, I do not wish for a war with them. War gains us nothing. Even if we take them down and put them below our feet, I will not be able to go against the central government, which holds more power in Cairo. This tournament is to prevent war." They must have thought that with the 6 groups being divided, they have a good chance of winning, and that is their baseless confidence. 3 stages. The second of these stages were in this operation, and the Northeast nobles would see a new reality. If the Northeast Alliance, which is still stuck in its fantasy, is defeated with overwhelming force. If they see reality alter, they will know that they will not come out as winners, and they will not even win in a single group, and that they will be unable to overcome Dmitry's might even with the support of the central government. That's when we start to take control of the region. It will be a perfect surrender. When the Alliance faces reality, I plan to subdue their weak minds. His father's expression didn't change. And up on the stage, Kevin was standing. Group 2, Kevin. He was now uneasy about the placement. I was slower than Chris. The round before, Chris defeated his enemy in 3 seconds. The opponent was helpless despite being a swordsman who could use aura, and Kevin saw it. So he did his best too. He planned to take the opponent down faster than Chris, but then the opponent blocked one attack, and the time moved to 8 seconds. It was fast enough, but Kevin wasn't happy with it. Chris is strong. I am not his equal opponent yet, but I do not want to accept this simply. What if? When people would ask, who was the sword of Roman Dmitry? Who would come to mind? It was a simple answer, everyone would say it was Chris. Chris was considered to be Dmitry's genius swordsman, and actually, he was truly showing the steps that correspond to the reason he followed Roman. He had the ability to defeat a 3-star swordsman with sharp leadership. With no opponents except Roman, it was only natural for him to be called Roman's sword. But Kevin hated it. He started following Roman first, so he didn't like Chris being Roman's representative. I will not deny that Chris is the leader. For the sake of my lord, I will be a servant faithful to the orders of the superior, but it is another matter for Chris to be considered as the first sword of Dmitry. I want the Lord to trust me. When he would only need strength to solve a problem, I want him to choose me and not Chris. For Kevin, Roman Dmitry was heaven. Kevin yearned for Roman's approval and hoped that he would be the best in his position and not just a competitor with skills. 3 seconds. Kevin had to finish it fast, but he changed his mind. I will prove my worth today. And as the Lord said, show everyone your overwhelming abilities. Kevin saw his opponent coming up from the other side of the stage, and his eyes changed. Flutter. The confrontation began, and Kevin's opponent was Knight Miles of the Northeast Noble Alliance. The opponent is the demon of Dmitry. If I don't do my best, I might lose my face. Rumble. And he used it right away. In the fight, the sword was being used. And the moment they raised their auras, it was no different from a fight that put lives on the line. Tap. Kevin was fast. With a simple step, he let Miles's attack flow, and he easily blocked the chained attack that hit him straight. Kevin raised his aura just like Miles. Knowing that Kevin already knew how to use aura, Miles pushed him hard without much agitation. Kong. King. It was still just the start. It was a match where Miles seemed to have the upper hand. At the unexpected flow, the Northeast nobles clenched their fists in excitement at their chance to win. It was then. Hook. The difference. Kevin dodged the attack and dug ahead. He stretched out the sword and attacked through the small gap. Quack. Quack. It was a shock. He hastily protected himself with aura, but the shock was too much for his chest. It wasn't to the extent of making him fall down. Miles clenched his teeth and attacked Kevin. Kevin's deep sword strikes caused a precarious situation of having too many gaps, but Miles's strikes never worked. Fucking rat. Wish. The heat was boiling inside of him. Just one step. That was the distance between him and Kevin. Obviously, it would be difficult to avoid it, but Kevin still showed such an acrobatic stance. It was absurd to move despite their close confrontation. Kevin didn't use aura to shield himself in the least and merely moved to avoid the attacks. It took a lot of guts. It would have been a shock if the attack actually worked, but Kevin didn't seem to care. Just one more step. Tack. That was his assessment, and he boldly rushed ahead. He intended to kill Kevin, even at the cost of giving up his flesh. Bang! Right ahead of him, Kevin's face disappeared. He immediately protected himself with aura. Quack. Ack. Another shock to the body. It was a shock that was enough to make his legs stumble, and he hurriedly looked for Kevin. One step to the back and Kevin was there. Right within the range of Miles's attack, so he didn't even take a breath. From then on, there was no such thing as a plan. Fight with instinct. He swung his sword when he saw him and raised his aura to protect himself from such a situation happening again. Hook. This time, he felt nothing. He felt annoyed. Even though they exchanged hits, not a single attack worked on Kevin. Fuck. The difference in skills was clearly visible. Kevin and Miles. Although the status of their auras may be different, the two showed an overwhelming difference in abilities. Just half a year ago, Kevin was a boy from the slums, but extreme training and experience in the war helped him grow. Whack. Another blow shook Miles's body. It hurt. As he staggered back, he constantly checked his surroundings. You bastard. Kevin took a step back. Miles didn't fully comprehend the scenario until now, since he was continuously thinking of ways to counter the attack, but Kevin was successful in attacking, although he never saw him do so. It felt like a joke. How Kevin constantly gave Miles time to breathe showed that Kevin wasn't even doing his best. Chris finished the opponent in 3 seconds. So Kevin changed his mind and decided that if Chris finished his fight in a short time, he would do the opposite. He purposely dragged out the fight to show the opponent how different he was from him. You bastard. Groan. Miles moved and rushed in. It was now a matter of pride. He didn't want to give up in such a way, regardless of how he would lose. Just once. He wanted to hit Kevin once. The sword fluttering with aura cut through Kevin, but this time, he avoided the attack by taking a step back. Their eyes met, revealing gaps. If he were hit with another attack now, he would be crippled. But Kevin left without attacking. Even though he would have a certain victory, he took a step back to allow Miles to adjust. Miles's mind collapsed at that situation. I will abstain. Making the opponent give up. This was Kevin's way. Kevin didn't finish it quickly. Rather, he dragged it out long enough to prove the difference between him and the opponent. And Miles collapsed. The talent of this man, who once dreamed of succeeding as a swordsman, felt tormented now. Round 2 is done. Kevin of the Dmitry family wins and advances to round 3. Kevin's victory came in 10 minutes. It was the longest in this tournament, but people were amazed throughout the whole 10 minutes. But Kevin didn't smile. While Kevin was fighting Miles. Round 2, 5 seconds. Round 3, 8 seconds. Round 4, 10 seconds. In those time frames, Chris shocked people by making it to the finals.